Why Aussie first home buyers are still struggling. If you're waiting for Australian property prices to crash in 2026, this might seriously surprise you. Because right now, even with rising global tensions, higher living costs, and interest rate pressure, the property market isn't collapsing. And for first home buyers, that's exactly the problem. It all starts with something happening far from Australia, the Iran conflict. Now you might be thinking, what does a war in the Middle East have to do with buying a home in Australia? Actually, a lot. Around 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and with tensions rising, oil prices have already jumped over 50%. That flows directly into the Australian economy. Petrol prices go up. Transport costs increase. Food becomes more expensive. And suddenly, your weekly expenses are higher than ever. For first home buyers, that means one thing: less money left at the end of the month. And here's the key question. If your expenses go up, how much can you actually borrow? This is where things get even tougher. Higher fuel and living costs push inflation up. And when inflation rises, central banks don't cut rates. In fact, they often do the opposite. So instead of relief, we're seeing interest rates stay higher for longer. Now, think about this from a first home buyer's perspective. Your borrowing capacity shrinks, your repayments get more expensive, and suddenly, homes that felt just within reach are now out of budget. That's why so many buyers feel stuck right now. But here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly a bit frustrating. Even though demand is slowing, prices aren't crashing. Why? Because supply is getting worse at the exact same time. Construction costs are rising again. Fuel prices increase transport costs. Building materials become more expensive. Projects get delayed or canceled entirely. And what does that lead to? Fewer new homes being built. So even though fewer people can afford to buy, there are also fewer homes available. That creates a strange situation. Less demand, but even less supply. And in property markets, when supply stays tight, prices tend to hold up. Now let's talk about the rental market, because this is another piece first home buyers can't ignore. With fewer homes being built and population still growing, rental supply is tightening fast. Rents are rising. Higher rents are actually pulling investors back into the market. Even with higher interest rates, rental returns are becoming more attractive. So now first home buyers aren't just competing with each other. They're competing with investors again. If this all feels familiar, it should. We've seen something like this before. Back in 2003, during the Iraq War, oil prices surged, inflation rose, and uncertainty increased. But instead of crashing, Australian property prices actually grew by nearly 19%. Now, that doesn't mean history will repeat exactly, because today's situation has even more pressure. The cost of living is already high. Housing supply is already tight. And affordability is already stretched, which makes this cycle even more challenging, especially for new buyers. So the big question is, where does the market go from here? It really comes down to one thing: how long this global pressure lasts. If the conflict stabilizes and oil prices ease, we could see inflation settle, rates stabilize, and the property market continue growing, just at a slower pace. But if this continues for 6 to 12 months or longer, then we're likely looking at slower price growth. Flat markets in some areas, and possibly small corrections. But here's the key point most people miss. A full market crash still looks unlikely. And the reason is simple. Australia still doesn't have enough homes. Even if demand drops by 15 or 20%, there's still a housing shortage. People still need places to live, and that creates a strong floor under property prices. So what does this mean for you as a first home buyer? Right now, the challenge isn't just prices. It's borrowing power, it's competition, and it's timing. This isn't an easy market to enter, but it's also not a market that's collapsing. And waiting for a crash that may never come could leave you further behind. Here's my honest take. Most first home buyers in 2026 are focusing on the wrong question. When will prices drop? But the better question is, can I afford to enter the market in the next 12 to 24 months? Because this market isn't being driven by hype anymore. It's being driven by fundamentals. Supply shortages, population growth, and economic pressure. And those forces don't disappear overnight. So while global events like the Iran conflict are creating uncertainty, they're not breaking the Australian property market. And for first home buyers, understanding that shift is everything. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more real estate insights from Realty Reels.